Hours Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Friday, March 12th, 2021. And as always, we are grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or listening through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the red and white bullseye or the link in the upper left-hand corner of most pages that says Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That chapter of the book is a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet or Wake Up Sheet Process. It's a tool I've been using to great advantage for 16 or 17 or 18 years now to manage my emotions and turn my negative emotions into an infallible guidance system. We encourage people to go there, download that chapter of that book, read it, understand what it's about. You can download absolutely free the worksheet process itself. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. They can serve as a tutorial for you. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words, Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And when you see the glowing heart icon and click on it, it will let you download a completely free and a private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We encourage people to do that soon and often, and then call us with your comments or questions. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. Alternatively, if you're listening in the archives and you're not able to call during the show, you can send us an email either at jeanie@yagain.org, or you can email me directly at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. And if we receive your question through email, we will do our best to answer it during one of the upcoming show segments. We're here 5 days a week in our current format, 2 hours a day, so there's plenty of time to answer questions. We've also made a commitment this year to work through the worksheet lessons from the Course in Miracles, or the workbook lessons from the Course in Miracles. Today is the 71st day of the year, and today's lesson is, only God's plan for salvation will work. Only the flow of creation's plan for salvation will work. The commentary reads, you may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation that is in opposition to the flow of creation. It is this plan in which you believe. You believe in the ego's plan. Since the ego's plan is the opposite of the flow of creation, you also believe that to accept creation's plan in place of the ego's plan is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course, yet after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as being outside of yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe. And that insertion says, quote, if this were different, I would be saved, close quotes. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. The role assigned to your own mind in this plan is simply to determine that other than itself, or to determine what it is other than itself that must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine. And that basic doctrine is seek but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channel all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? God's plan for salvation works simply because, by following His direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed, as the creation promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided, and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. How can you escape all this? Well, very simply, the idea for today is that answer. Only creation's plan for salvation will work. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this because there is no possible alternative to the flow of creation and the plan that unfolds that will save you. The flow of creation is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. It is the only plan that must succeed. Let us practice recognizing that certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no possible resolution. All things are possible in creation. Salvation must be yours because of its plan, which cannot fail. Begin the 2 longer practice periods for today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work, and all other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first part. And in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. All of those attempts have led to depression and anger, but the creation's plan will succeed, and it will lead to release and joy. Remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice periods to asking creation to reveal its plan to us. Just ask very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Give creation full charge of the rest of the practice period, and let it tell you what needs to be done by you in its plan for your salvation. It will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear its voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing the exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. And this is enough to establish your claim to creation's answer. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that the creation's plan for salvation and only its plan will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold any grievances today and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of creation's plan for salvation, and only creation's plan will work. Try to remember today's idea 6 or 7 times every hour. There could be no better way to spend half a minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is. Pam Grout's book, The Course in Miracles Experiment, her chapter 71 is titled, A Whole New Instruction Manual. Pam quotes Barb Marley, who says, "None but ourselves can free our minds." Pam writes, not long after he returned from India, spiritual guru Ram Dass was speaking in New York. Decked out in a flowing white robe and beads, he was confronted by a woman in the audience who stood up and said, "Why are you dressed like that? Aren't you Jewish?" Without missing a beat, he answered, "Only on my parents' side." All of us are so much more than the genetic makeup of our bodies, the heredity of our families. We are literally God in drag. Lesson 71. Only love's plan for salvation will work. Tells me that trying to be anything else is crazy ridiculous. The ego's plan, found in the thought, if only this were different, I'd be okay. The ego's plan is like following a map of Peoria to navigate the streets of London, or like using a do-it-yourself book manual to fix my vacuum cleaner. I have to read that again. Like using a do-it-yourself bookshelf manual to fix my vacuum cleaner. Source's plan is to know that everything is okay, to celebrate that fact with full frontal abandon. This lesson also has one of my all-time favorite passages. Quote, "What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom?" The answers I get from this practice are the only instruction manual I could ever need. And just to wet people's whistle for Saturday and Sunday's lessons, we won't read all of their commentary, but for tomorrow, the lesson is holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. And Sunday's plan is, I will there be light. The first paragraph of that commentary says, today we are considering the will you share with Creator. This is not the same as the ego's idle wishes, out of which darkness and nothingness arise. The will that you share with your Creator has all the power of creation in it. The ego's idle wishes are unshared and therefore have no power at all. Its wishes are not idle in the sense that they can make a world of illusions in which your belief can be very strong. But they are idle indeed in terms of creation. They make nothing that is real. And we're told in further lessons, fear doesn't create anything. Other lessons give us the highlight summary that there is only this energy of creation that some call love, and fear. And the energy of creation has created everything you've ever experienced. The energy of fear has only created within you the illusion of separation and all of your negative emotional states. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and we have 42 minutes left. How can we support you today? I had somebody send an email and ask a whole series of questions about really, really weighty topics. Let's see if Susan's here. It looks like Susan is here.
Hey.
Are you able to talk?
Yep.
So you're asking some weighty questions, like, what does Byron Katie mean when she says joy? And then you gave an answer that apparently you were listening to a podcast, and she answered that question and defined joy as simply an absence of suffering.
Right.
And then you say you want to ask her if she ever has a racing mind, thoughts that just race.
Mhm.
Well, I think that the more you read and listen to her, the more you'll get the answer to that question, which is, yeah, she's like everybody else. And thoughts come and go all the time. And she has a profound understanding that her thoughts only have the meaning for her that she gives them.
Right.
And so she just watches them arise. A little bit later on in your email, you question whether or not this is related to Dr. Michael Ryce's phrase, premature positive thinking. And I would say no, it's not, because she's not denying pain. She's not denying thoughts of sadness and loss. She's not denying whatever arises. She's allowing and accepting whatever arises. And my understanding of Dr. Michael Ryce's premature positive thinking is that people say, I want to be spiritual like Jesus, or I want to be spiritual like Buddha, so I'm not going to get upset anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they pretend that they don't have the negative thoughts and that they don't have issues and resistance. And then they don't feel like they have any need to engage in the tool, whether it's the inquiry of the work that Byron Katie promotes, or a very similar tool, which is the Reality Management Worksheet, which Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce make available. They just want to go living their life, holding their beliefs and vengeances and bitterness, and not admit that it's there, and not do anything to see it to its source, and therefore dismantle the power it has over their perception. So that's the difference I see between what Byron Katie is doing with her radical inquiry and what Michael Ryce calls premature positive thinking.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm remembering, and he has corrected me for, I have such mental block against remembering what he says, premature something, premature positive something.
Positive thinking.
Is it just?
That's it.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is pretending I'm done with my issues. This is pretending I don't have anger anymore. This is pretending I don't have sadness. I don't have resentment.
Right.
I don't have any vengeances. I love everybody. And walking around, with either a completely blank face or a completely joyful, smiley face all the time. And that's, Michael says, the problem with that is, well, I'll give you the example of that came to me when I was down in Heartland, and I had to be part of teacher training. And as part of teacher training, you got assigned a segment of the book or of the chapter of chapter 24. Anyway, the point is, the image came to me very clearly. When I was young, we used to drink a lot of milk. And we used to call it ice-cold milk because it would be very cold from the refrigerator. Not exactly ice-cold, but we were kids, not scientists. Anyway,
Right.
We also had this chocolate syrup. I forget what brand, but we had a chocolate syrup. And when you took the chocolate syrup out of the refrigerator, which was kept in the refrigerator, and the milk, which was kept in the refrigerator, you could pour yourself a nice tall glass of milk, and it would be this bright white, beautiful, we just loved it plain. And for a special treat, we could pour chocolate syrup in it. And here's the thing that was fascinating. We could pour chocolate syrup into the glass, and it would drop like a rock right to the bottom because both the syrup and the milk were cold, and it would accumulate at the bottom, and you'd still have a completely white, almost completely pristine glass of white milk. You can taste it and taste the milk. And the chocolate's sitting down there at the bottom, and you could drink 98% of that glass of milk and not taste any chocolate. So imagine that you have somebody who doesn't really like chocolate, and somebody offers them a glass of milk, and there's this chocolate at the bottom, but they're not paying attention to it because it's not at the top, it's not in the middle, it's not on the sides. And along comes now this person, remember, doesn't like chocolate. And along comes a spoon. And the spoon agitates the contents of that glass. And the person blames the spoon for the chocolate. You gave me chocolate. There was no chocolate in me, and you gave me chocolate in my milk, and I don't like. And the person is convinced that the cause of the chocolate in the milk is the spoon's presence and agitation. Now, let's say we have a really patient person, and they put the glass of now chocolate milk back in the refrigerator and leave it there overnight or a couple days. And they come back. Oh, by the way, they've thrown the spoon away, and they've locked the refrigerator so the spoon can't get in there and ruin their milk. And they come back 2 days later, and the milk is almost all white again. And, of course, the chocolate syrup has all settled to the bottom. And they use this as proof that it was the spoon that gave them the chocolate milk, gave them chocolate in their milk. The spoon had nothing to do with putting the chocolate in the glass. Well, this is what we do as human beings. We walk around full of anger, full of trauma, full of fear, full of vengeance, but we're not aware of it. We're like the white glass of milk with all the chocolate sitting at the bottom. Somebody comes along and says or does something, and they act like the spoon to stir it up, and we blame them for what we're feeling. It's insanity of the highest order. And that's exactly what this Course in Miracles lesson today talks about in the commentary. The ego's plan. Do you remember that portion from the beginning of the commentary? It was a long time ago. It was a long commentary. The ego's plan is to figure out who or what outside of me has created my upset.
I know. There's the worksheet right there. It's amazing, the connection there. Yeah.
The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if only someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event would change, then I'd be saved. That doggone spoon gave me chocolate in my perfectly white glass of milk. And the spoon didn't give me anything. It just showed me what was already in the bottom of the glass. Another time we had, I think Dr. Michael Ryce came up with this one, but I probably twisted it, embellished it, or ruined it a little bit, contaminated it a little bit, however you want to think about it. let's say I live in an old farmhouse and I ask you to come over and help me move some furniture. Because, I'm kind of clumsy and weak in my old age, and so you come over, and you're young and strong, and everything's great, and I'm trying to keep up with you, and as I'm trying to keep up with you, I trip and I punch a hole either with my elbow or my knee or heel or whatever in this old lathwork plaster farmhouse wall.
Right.
And as I pull my appendage out of the wall, out spills an entire mouse nest, little babies squirming and all of the stuffing that they've taken out of my favorite pillows to make their nest. And I yell at you, "You gave me mice."
Right.
You no more gave me mice than the spoon gave me the chocolate.
Right.
The mice were already there. And something that happened in my interaction with you revealed to me the contents hidden behind the wall, the mouse nest.
Yeah. Mhm.
This is the case with every negative emotional experience I am ever privileged to watch within myself.
Right.
It's an inside job.
Right. Well, one of the things I appreciate about you is you will come in and you'll say, "I'm having to do this radio show, but I feel like crap." I mean, you don't word it like that, but you say, "I need to do some work. Nobody's punching one, so I'm going to do a worksheet right here and now because I am struggling." You put yourself on the same terrain that I think most of us listeners feel as if we're on. And Byron Katie doesn't reveal all that much about that part of her life. She's so focused on the person she's speaking to and so loving that she'll say, "Hello, sweetheart." I mean, she'll be right there with you, and you get to see her doing the work, guiding the person. And I want to know how she is. I want to know about her eyes, for instance, which I wrote to you about. I want to know whether she gets mad and has to do a worksheet, the work. I assume she does.
Well, but here's the issue. She does the work all the time because she doesn't have to pick up a Dr. Michael Ryce worksheet because the work, the very same work to my eyes and ears, came to her in the form of 4 questions and a turnaround. And she does that on a regular basis. She does that every time. Absolutely. It's the only way she can be the way she is, because she is not any different than any other human being. And she has thoughts that occur to her, and she doesn't have control over them. The only thing she has control over, like all the rest of us, is what is the meaning she gives those thoughts? What's the mental, emotional energy she pours into them?
I've gotten the sense that she doesn't do that, and I love hearing that you say she does. For instance, over the years, quiet, Dr. Tim, let me just say this. I need to say this.
I am. Go ahead.
She was in the kitchen with her daughter, and she stuck her hand too far down in a blender and ripped off the tips of some fingers or something. And she pulled her hand out and looked at the blood and thought, "How brilliant is this blood? How wonderful. What an experience I'm having." She seems to be already there. I don't get the sense she needed to pause and say, "I did a dumb thing," or go through any kind of machinations to get to the point where every new thing excites her. She talks about walking down the street and seeing the leaves and seeing the roots of the trees. It's all so delightful and wonderful. It feels...
Okay, so take a breath, because you're right.
Okay.
You're right. It seems too good to be true.
Yeah.
However, she had the first 43 years of her life where she was just like everybody else, and probably not like the average person. She was probably more depressed and anxious than the average person. She suffered with deep depression and anxiety. And then she had this awakening experience, much like Krishnamurti had his awakening experience. He was on a ship after his brother died, and he and his brother were like, they were as close as two brothers could be because they'd been taken away from their family at a young age, and they only had each other as they traveled around with this Theosophical Society group. And his brother had died, and he was on this ocean voyage and isolated, and he went through the crisis of crises. Some would call it the dark night of the soul. Way of Mastery calls it the dark night of the ego and the awakening of the soul. And the same is true for Eckhart Tolle, who was struggling with suicidal depression, and I can't take it. And in the middle of it, there was this shift, this fundamental shift that happened. Well, Byron Katie is just like that. So by the time 20 years have passed and she's writing a book, because that happened when she was 43, that she had that awakening. And now 63 years old and she's writing a book like 1,000 Names for Joy. She's been practicing this from that deep awakened state more than most anybody who's ever done Course in Miracles lessons. She's been, it's like what Michael Ryce says. Once you realize this is the work, what else is there to do? What's more important than ending your suffering moment to moment? What's more important than getting to tap into the joy and appreciation of aliveness moment to moment? So she was doing that for years and years and years before, she could put her hand in a blender and of course her hand recoiled and there was the intense sensation, but she had such a practiced work of questioning all of her thoughts that this is bad and and living in that moment-to-moment realization that everything that happens is perfect the way it is. Just like what Michael Singer's trying to get us to see when he talks about how everything you see, every molecule that you're aware of when you look in your body and in the room around you or in the trees outside, it began at the Big Bang. And it's all of the molecules, all of the individual atoms were a product of 13.84 billion years of this movement of creation. So, of course, it's perfect just the way it is. It isn't perfect when we layer over our questions and conditions and we say, oh, this person is not acting as love, and therefore they're doing something abusive to that child. That's not perfect in that sense. It's at another level of scale, it's exactly perfect. It's the flow of life. At a level of scale that I'm here and I'm in a store and I see a parent abusing their child, even Byron Katie would say this. She wouldn't stand there and just watch the child be abused. She would take an action based on that interaction, and she would talk with the parent about their pain and because she understands a human being can't do anything hurtful to another human being unless that first human being is in pain.
Right.
So I just want to reinforce what you're saying. There's no magical thinking involved here. She wasn't born from immaculate conception, and she was never sin, and she's the glorious coming of all creation any more than any other person.
Well, it's funny about that. You tell about
the pain in her eyes, as you can just hear her in her own words. If you get her books, she talks about the pain in her eyes, how sometimes it doesn't respond to the pain meds, the shift of not being able to see and what that requires her to do in terms of her adaptations to living. There's no pretense here that she's just energy and she doesn't have any body to deal with. She does not do in that routine. It's very honest.
I'm going to have to read her with a different sensitivity to the implied stuff, because when she tells about sleeping on the floor because she didn't feel she deserved to sleep in a bed. And then this roach goes over her leg, and she got it. And after that, she walked down the street as if in a daze, and the neighbors called her something like the light lady. And they began flocking to her because she had it. The same or similar something happened to Eckhart Tolle. He was in a terrible way, darkness. And then he had this shift, and it never left him. With him, I think it subsided somewhat. With her, she says, it never left. So, yes, she created the work thing because she realized that it had been her thoughts that upset her. But I got the sense that her thoughts no longer upset her, but she remembered how they had, and she created this work, and she's been in a blissful state ever since. I've seen it being, she is so beyond what most of us, speak only for myself, could ever achieve, that I've sort of thought I need an intermediary, sort of like the way they say Jesus is an intermediary between God and us. But you're saying there are, I mean, she says, yes, I feel pain, but I don't suffer. And I understand that distinction very well. My son often says to me, I don't care how bad my leg hurts, I'm not depressed. You know, he makes the distinction between mental pain, which to him is suffering, and physical pain, which is just pain. And he'd prefer pain, of course, who wouldn't, any day? Extreme pain, even. Yeah, she says she takes a Tylenol if it gets too bad, but she's not talking about suffering. I guess I'm trying to draw the line between pain and suffering, and I'm saying she doesn't suffer. She stopped suffering the minute that roach.
Okay, so if that's happening, how is that useful for you to determine that she doesn't suffer or she does suffer? How is it going to change what Susan Bingham does in her life?
Okay, good question. It's going to make it very necessary for me to do a heck of a lot more worksheets and also carry around this thought that I can't get there where she is. I can't get there.
Well, then she would encourage you to do the work on that thought. Is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true?
Yeah, right.
The two other questions and the turnaround. You and the fact is, and I'm sure you'll get there if you're willing to do the work, is that you.
Okay, Dr. Tim, I can't hear you. Your radio is doing that. There you are again. You came back.
You can hear me?
Yeah, you went out.
Okay, so that's the work, is for you to question that belief that you can't get there. And then there are those four questions.
Yeah. Good.
All right. Can you absolutely know it's true?
No.
And
I can say that.
No. And how do you react, or what happens when you believe it's true?
I feel like crap. You're right.
Yeah. And then who would you be without that thought?
Oh yeah, much more hopeful.
And then turn it around. And turn it around and say, hey, what if the truth is I can get there, and I'm just a week or two or a choice and a breath away from it.
It's lovely.
And let the deep inquiry reveal to you the truth for you, not the truth for Byron Katie, not the truth for Dr. Ryce, but the truth for.
Now you're gone again, Dr. Tim. It happened right in the middle of a word, so I could tell when it cut out. I don't know if you can hear me or if anyone else listening can hear me, but you're gone. Okay.
Are you there?
I am. Could you hear me while you were gone?
No, I had to hang up. I had to call back in.
Oh my gosh, so weird.
I was just saying that when you question that for you, not for Byron Katie, not for Michael Ryce, not for anybody else, then you'll know the truth for you.
Okay. Good. Very good.
All right. Do you want to have Ellen's input?
Sure. Hi, Susan. Hi, Dr. Tim.
Hi, Ellen.
Hello, Ellen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Susan, that you don't have to get there. It's not about you getting there. I mean, and I think you know that that moment of awakening that, Byron Katie experienced in Eckhart Tolle, and I mean, that's a moment of just pure divine grace. And it's not based on you doing anything or getting there. It comes so unexpectedly. And so, the thought that I can't get there, I mean, you have no idea what's going to happen in the next moment. I mean, and I think you've experienced some, maybe more minor awakenings yourself, haven't you?
Yes, and I had 3 whole days of feeling like that, state of complete bliss, as if everything in front of me was in psychedelic colors, and I loved everybody and everything, and I've had that experience in shorter bouts several times. So, but they don't last.
But did you feel like it was a result of you working to get there that they came upon you?
That's a good question. The first and biggest one was I went to bed saying a very sincere prayer for help, and then went to bed and had a dream that left me in this state for 3 days. So in a way, I did think I had done something right. I had said the prayer the right way, and it's a good thing that you're asking that, because I couldn't have invoked that myself, except I thought my utter sincerity in saying that prayer, it was unself-conscious. I remembered back, but you're right.
The reach out for help. I mean, it wasn't something you brought on, other than the fact that you asked for help, and it is important to ask for help. This isn't something that we do, that we can achieve. I mean, it's a state in which we already are, so it's just that light has to break through into our awareness.
Let me point out, Ellen and Susan, that your thought that it was your sincerity that did it is a religious teaching.
Okay.
It's a conditioning of various cultures that you need to be more focused. You need to be more, what was the word? I just lost it. Sincere, right? And if it doesn't happen, then you're not sincere enough. You just have to keep trying harder. And, of course, you have to pay more money to the church and do the indulgences and pray for grace and all of that. And if you're not getting the grace the way that your mind tells you want it, then you're not trying hard enough. That's a religious teaching. That's got nothing to do with this truth that Ellen just spoke, which is much more closer to it. This is just the flow of life. Some would call it grace. This is just what happens. And there are other things in the book, 1,000 Names for Joy, where Byron Katie talks about how enlightenment is not something that just happens and then it's there always. It's an in-the-moment willingness to question your thoughts. That's her formulation is. Right? It's an every moment observance of the truth and an acceptance of the truth. It isn't like a degree you get and hang on your wall and now you've always got it.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, and I think, I had the same experience as you, Susan, where, I went into this state and then over a period of months it gradually waned and I kept, there's my fear thought going, oh, I'm losing it. losing it. And then sure enough, it was like I lost it. But it was like, then I realized later, wait a minute, I can't lose that. Maybe I lost my awareness of it, but that's who and what I am. And also, I think it's partly true that, it's so extraordinary at first, right? But then over time, it becomes more normal for you, and you get accustomed to it and integrate it. I think our bodies can only handle so much at a time. And so I think that's why most people go through like stages of awakening, because I know what I went through with my body. It was like horrible for 5 days what my body went through. I couldn't have handled any more than that. And I know at the exact perfect time when I am ready to handle more of that light, it will come, and not because of anything that I've done. Or, there's nothing I need to do to deserve it. It's thinking that we need to be more of this, less of that, that perpetuates the suffering that, I'm not there and I'm not going to get there.
And the other thing that perpetuates the suffering is to say, wait a minute, the state I'm in now is not the right state. I need things to change. And this is the key to Byron Katie's work, is to just say, however the moment unfolds, it's perfect. How do I know it's perfect? Because it's unfolding. So she would say if she lost her joy, or, if she was riddled with depression again, she would say, well, this must be perfect because it's happening. And it's that idea that we're I heard a teacher back in the 80s say this. When we have one of those enlightened moments, we have one of those times where we feel one with the universe and time is irrelevant, etc. Most people who have that experience because of the conditioning of their culture, they prevent themselves from having it a second time or staying in it longer, because as soon as it shifts, they label it bad or wrong. And then instead of being in that allowing, accepting space, they're trying to change what is. But the truth of it is, in that moment, they weren't thinking that anything had to be different. When you have those enlightened moments, you're not thinking, if I could just make this red a little redder and that green a little less sharp. Everything about your senses is just, and you get it. You have the experience that everything is perfect just the way it is. And then when it shifts, the ego steps in and says, wait a minute, this isn't what it's supposed to be. I need to change this and this to get that back.
Yeah, exactly.
The insanity of it. We instantly move out of the space of acceptance that, for instance, Byron Katie is talking about.
And this is the exact same key that today's Course in Miracles lesson points to. And, any grievance, like I used to think grievances were those things that, I thought were really bad. But today, I'm seeing like moment to moment all the little grievances that I didn't even recognize as grievances. Any little thing that I think isn't perfectly okay, like if I would prefer something to be just a little different than it is, that's a grievance.
Right.
And that's the only thing that's holding me back from what I really want, my happiness. And it's like, wow, this is the fourth time through doing the lessons for me. And I was like, wow, it took, but that's what it took. It's perfect. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I love it because I keep hearing this train. And for the longest time, I'm like, why? The train's always been there, but why am I suddenly noticing it all the time? And then I got the message that the train is telling me you're right on track. And now every time I realize that we're always right on track. Like a train can't veer off, right? It's on tracks. And so it's like I'm realizing that moment to moment we're always on track. And I love it when the train comes through and just like reconfirms that for me. It's like, oh yeah, thank you. I was forgetting that, yeah, this is perfect just the way it is. It can't be any different. This is the plan, and the plan is perfect for me, and your plan is perfect for you. And I don't know why it seems like it takes so long for this to really sink in, but it's just the way it is.
Well, but part of why it takes so long to sink in is because Michael likes to talk about the analogy with the computer. And you got a computer with a virus on the hard drive, and it just keeps slowing down, and then finally it just quits working. So you take the hard drive out of it and put it in a new computer. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But you just keep pulling the hard drive out and put it in a new computer. Well, the virus gets more and more complex and more dysfunctional. That's like our conscious logical mind from our cultural training and our family dynamics. And he talks about his work, or Byron Katie's work, as being the virus removal tool. Well, it's so well rehearsed. It gets passed down through the bloodline. The other thing, as long as I'm talking about Michael Ryce, he tells a story of where he had one of those awakening times, and he thought, I just want to stay here. And the awareness came to him. He could stay, but his body would burn up. It couldn't stand that level of vibration. Mm-hmm. And so it would be, he couldn't stay and still be in the physical form, which is very similar to what you were saying, Ellen.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's why it normally comes in stages. We can only handle so much at a time, and so it's perfect that we get these reprieves in between, and until we're ready for the next one.
Well, and one of the things I like to talk about is, I'm in this seemingly physical body in this progression of life for the past X number of years, and I've had these family members, and I've had these relationships, and I have this schooling, but at a certain level, while some people might consider me fairly high functional, I still forget what I was going to take to work with me and have to turn around and go home and get it. I have no idea how my food gets digested when I put it in the energy system I call a body. There's so much stuff I don't know, and yet let something go in the day different than the way I think it should, and I know I'm right and the day's wrong. And the insanity of that, is dawning on me more and more as I listen to people like Michael Singer and Byron Katie and Michael Ryce. And so why, if I'm so bright that I could get a doctorate, why didn't I just hear that the first time and then I never have to question that again? Because of the power of the conditioned thought, including what's woven into the language. And so, I've been living, I think I like to tell a story at like 45 years or 40 years old before I got introduced to questioning this stuff this deeply. And I really let it in. I was exposed to it probably in my early 30s, but I wouldn't let it in. With Krishnamurti, I started reading that stuff. But, his stuff was just like Byron Katie's. You question everything. You understand that every thought and every belief system is old, dead stuff, and you move into direct observation in the moment. But it took me another decade or more before I even let that in. So I probably had 40 to 45 years of conditioning in the mindset that said, you made me angry, you hurt my feelings, this has to change for me to be happy, I have to finally get a house, I have to finally find the one I'm going to marry, I have to finally get the degree, and then I'll be happy, etc. All of that was conditioned and programmed into my thought for 4.5 decades before I found some tools that would let me seriously cut into that conditioning, seriously interrupt it, and supplant it with something more directly observational.
Plus everything
so
that you got from your ancestors.
Go ahead, Ellen.
It's not just your own conditioning in this lifetime, but what you brought forward with you from previous lifetimes, from ancestors, all the stuff that's in the DNA, what they call the junk DNA, all those records of experience that have conditioned the mind. And so it's even more than from what you've experienced in this lifetime. That's why it takes so long.
Exactly.
You're right.
It has a lot of momentum, as Abraham would say. It has a tremendous amount of momentum.
Whoa.
So, Susan, thank you so much for starting the conversation and sending the email with those questions. And Ellen, thank you for your contribution as well. I realize we're down to like 1 minute and 50 seconds. So we should get ready for a transition here. And thank you both so much for your thoughts and comments. And I'll mute you and we'll get ready for the transition.
Thank you.
Blessings to both of you. I would like to remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Jeannie Ryce. I'm going to turn your microphone on just in case you're already talking. Are you there? I'll ask you to unmute.
Yes,
you're already.
I have a new phone, and all the buttons are in different places. Thank you.
Okay, well, we were having some blackouts, and I had to call back in once, so hopefully it'll be smooth running for you. But
awesome.
But have a lovely show and a great weekend.
Thank you. You too, Dr. Tim. All right, so